Dear Younger Me, week 4. This is the final part of our sermon series that we've been going through. If it's your first time here or you missed a few of these, I just want to remind you that these are supposed to be taken as a one big chunk, all 4 weeks, building to this week. So you don't need to leave. I'm glad you're here, but I encourage you to be one of the 24 people with my mom, my grandma, and a few randos that listen to this on YouTube, and you can catch up. But just understand that we've been going on this journey for a while, and really this idea came from a Reddit message post in 2020, 2021 that I saw of what would you tell your younger self? And so if you were to tell your younger self something, what would you say? I think a more interesting question is, how would you have had to communicate with your younger self? If you're disgustingly young under the age of 25, how would you text your younger self? Perhaps how would you Facebook message your younger self? Maybe what would you write on your younger self's MySpace page? Maybe what would you handwrite your younger self? Some of you, it may be, what would you handwrite your younger self and have delivered via the Pony Express? We have different names here. Different names, different people, different ages. We never know. But what would you tell your younger self? And this week I want to highlight maybe some fashion choices you had. Good ones, bad ones. We're going to take a look at a couple of them, and if you had these fashion choices at any point in time in your life, just applause, raise your hand, Christian catcalls, whatever you want, and then we'll see if you have courage. Here's the first one. Maybe you had kind of the 1950s. Anybody? Not one person. You liars. All right? Maybe you had like a leather jacket with like a cigarette box rolled up in your sleeve. Still don't know why they did that, but whatever. No. All right, let's move on. That bombed. Okay. Run DMC? I still have Adidas tracksuits that I wear all the time. My wife can't keep her hands off me when I wear this right now. And plus I hear like that Aerosmith song that they collaborated. Anyway, that one did a little better, but let's move quickly. Anybody courageous enough to say, I've been there? Bell bottoms, afro, you name it. Yeah, one hand in the back. Yeah, all right. One honest person. Next one. I have never worn as comfortable as an outfit as I did when I wore MC Hammer pants. Like I could do this right now. I would dance more. I just don't want to make you ladies stumble. I know, I'm like that. But man, they had these shirts called Hypercolor, where like you could touch your shirt and then move your hand and it changed color based on body heat. This was terrifying for teenagers because my shirts would change color around my armpits. Hypercolor, man. Those were the good old days. That was the best picture I could find. If you've never worn MC Hammer pants, dude, you have not lived. And then here's the last one. Maybe some of you dress like this. My daughters have the hardest time believing that, one, these are guys, and two, that women found these kind of guys attractive in the early 80s. It just, anybody? Hair metal band? Anybody? Yeah, I saw a couple like little quick hands, yeah. Just barely put your hand up like a Baptist during worship, just barely. Right? Feel a little bit of the Spirit, just not very much. All right, so you probably wouldn't tell your younger self fashion choices if you only had one thing to say. You probably would say something a little more deeper than that, maybe a little more impactful than that. And we as a community have been going through the life of the Old Testament character Joseph. And we have been in the book of Genesis. Today we're going to be in Genesis 42, and we'll move along. But we've been following the life of Joseph, and we've been really taking his story and showing the correlation of some things that we might tell our younger self. Week 1, we went through That's Not Your Fault. Some of you may want to tell your younger self that what you went through, understand that it's not your fault. Number 2, Week 2, we went through You're Going to Make It. Here's the common denominator amongst everybody here. We've all been through some stuff, and we're all here. Which leads us into Week 3, last week, Purpose in Your Pain. And what we talked about is the difference between pain that has no purpose and pain that has purpose that God can use is if you decide to lay it on the altar as a sacrifice and let God use it. If you don't, you are holding on to the pain and it will have no purpose. But what if God could use it? what if God could use what you've been through to help others and to bring him glory? And then this week is forgive generously. Forgive generously. And I'm just going to tell you on the front end what it's going to look like on the back end of this message. We have pieces of paper all up front here. Some have been written on, some haven't. And we have pencils and we have black pieces of construction paper. And at the end of our service, I'm going to challenge some of you who have been carrying unforgiveness for far too long to come up to the altar, to write it, to name it. Name who, name what. I felt the Spirit tell me this morning that some of you need to write yourself on here to forgive yourself for what you've done. You've never really forgiven yourself for it. And we're going to have an opportunity to write that on here and leave it. And I'm going to spend the next 25 minutes trying to tell you why you should. So let me take you back in time a few years ago when Facebook first came out, all right? And it was a big deal that you were even eligible for a Facebook page. And when we first got Facebook, it was a great way for us to really kind of stalk all the people you went to high school with and find out which ones like were successful and which ones weren't and which ones, what they were doing with their lives and all of that. I had zero interest in actually being friends with them, but Facebook provided a great way in which I don't have to be your friend, but I can eavesdrop on everything in your life. It's wonderful. And so everybody that I graduated with high school from, I went to high school with, like we all became friends. Now, if I really wanted to be their friends, I would have been their friend over the last 20 years, but I'm not really wanting to be their friend. I just want to know what's going on in their life, right? Like a real friend. And so I started just becoming friends with everybody I went to high school with, and I found it so funny. I still find it really funny, the ones that I stumble upon Jason, and they see that the Lord uses me to lead a church. It's got to be just crazy. Y'all don't know. Some of you do, because some of you went to high school with me, and it's crazy. But anyways, I remember getting this message. That was back before you could do a direct message. She just wrote it on my page of, hey, Jason, so good to see you. Would love to talk to you on the phone. Here's my phone number. And if I can be honest, and I mean this in the nicest way possible, my first response was, I don't know who this guy is. And I didn't even go to that big of a school. But like this guy's like 3-4 years younger than me, which basically means you live 3 or 4 states away from me. Like a senior's not going to hang out with a sophomore or freshman. I'm so sorry. Like 2 different worlds. And he looked sort of familiar, but I was like, well, okay, let's talk to him. Maybe he's rich and he needs a church to dump all of his money to, right? So let's just give him a call. And I give this guy a call, and we have the casual beginning of the conversation for a while. And then he leads into, I've been going to therapy for a while, and part of my recovery is I need to forgive people who have wronged me, and I wanted to call you today and tell you that I am sorry. Yes, man, I have no idea what I did to him. I have no idea. He just said, I just want to let you know I forgive you. And I said, I'm sorry, but I'm glad you forgive me. Thank you. I have no idea what he needed to forgive me for. I have no memory of it. So I'm trying to do that thing where you're talking to somebody and you don't know their name, but you're trying to pick up on context clues what their name or where you know them from, and you're kind of half listening in your mind. You're panicking, okay, where do I know them from? Is it from work? Is it from church? Where is it? Just me? Okay. I'm not that way with any of you. Now, not me. But I'm sitting here trying to figure this out, and he goes, dude, it all happened on that one day. You remember we were on the soccer team together. I made the soccer team as a sophomore, and we were on the bus, and I said something to you, and you didn't like what I said, and you pushed me and yelled at me and embarrassed me in front of the entire team. And I was like, yeah, man, I remember that. It feels like yesterday. And he's like, I hated you for years. And I have felt less than because of what you said to me that day, and I just want to let you know I forgive you. Now, I'm thinking about what Jason was like in mid to late 90s. That sounds on brand. So I'm not thinking that he's making this up. But here's the point, is that he held this for years of unforgiveness towards me, and I didn't even know about it. Point number 1, forgiveness is a gift. Forgiveness is a gift. But here's the twist. It's not a gift you're giving to the other person. It's a gift for you. God gives us the opportunity to forgive, not to let the other person off the hook, but so that you don't have to carry that anymore. Have you ever been around somebody who has resentment and the victim mentality and unforgiveness and everything is through a lens of offense? You're probably not going to invite them to your party. They're terrible to be around. But I've also noticed that unforgiveness and fruit of the Spirit rarely coexist. You want peace? You want joy? You want kindness? We've got to get rid of unforgiveness. Forgiveness is a gift. We're following the life of Joseph, who showed us that what happened to him at a young age was not his fault. His brothers despised him because he was dad's favorite. They threw him in a cistern. They faked his death, so his dad thinks he's dead. One of his brothers thinks he's dead, and they sell him off into slavery. And what we have looked at over the last few weeks is that God has taken what Joseph went through, what man tried to harm him, and God has used it for his purpose. And we have seen that God continues to elevate him, and he has setback after setback after setback. But the Lord showed him something at a very young age. And what I love about Joseph is he never questioned if he was going to get there. But you and I, every time we face a setback of any kind, what's our default? Lord, why'd you let this happen? Are you even listening anymore, God? Do you even care? And Joseph never had those emotions. So then we see Joseph become second in command of all of Egypt, one of the greatest nations that we've ever seen historically, which is ludicrous because he's a Hebrew. So you got a Hebrew boy that becomes second in command of the Egyptian empire, right underneath Pharaoh. That's wild. But there's a purpose. See, God needs to use Joseph to take the 7 years that they have of abundance and to take food and store it. Because after 7 years of abundance, they're going to have 7 years of famine. Nothing, a drought, no food. So it says, the scripture says that he saved 7 years worth of food, so much that they stopped keeping count. And what we said last week is, imagine if you had so much money that the bank's like, I can't even keep count anymore. So just keep your money here and go swim through your gold like Scrooge McDuck. If you have no idea what that means, you have not lived a life. And so now here's Joseph. He's second in command of all of Egypt. There's a famine in the land. Everybody's coming to Egypt to buy grain. And here we are. This is where our story picks up. Chapter 42, verse 1. When Jacob, that's his dad who believes that Joseph is dead. When Jacob learned that there was grain in Egypt, he said to his sons, "Why do you just keep looking at each other?" I love that. He's like, "What are y'all standing around for?" He continued, "I have heard that there is grain in Egypt. Go down there and buy some for us so that we may live and not die." So now let's look at 42 verse 6. Now comes the moment where Joseph is reunited with his brothers. Listen to this. Now Joseph was the governor of the land, the person who sold grain to all its people. So when Joseph's brothers arrived, they bowed down to him with their faces to the ground. As soon as Joseph saw his brothers, he recognized them, but he pretended to be a stranger and spoke harshly to them. "Where do you come from?" he asked. "From the land of Canaan," they replied, "to buy food." Although Joseph recognized his brothers, they did not recognize him. We've spent 4 weeks building to this moment. His brothers come in. Now they need him. Now's the chance for Joseph to get revenge. Now he has all the leverage. They need him. It is the moment. I wonder how many nights when he was in Potiphar's house, how many days when he was in prison, how many times he has thought about how his brothers wronged him, and the moment when he could get them back. I find it also interesting that as they walk into the throne room, what do? They bow down to him. If you remember 3 weeks ago, this is what started the entire thing. The Lord gave him a vision at 17 years old that one day his brothers would bow down to him. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you that when the Lord speaks something to you, he does not stutter. And though you may face setbacks, do not give up on what God has put in your heart. And for those of you that have had the sin of man derail you from what God wants for you, I'm here to tell you something. The sin of others is not powerful enough to wipe out God's plan and his purpose for you. You have to understand that. I am not minimizing what you go through. I know some of you have been through some terrible things. But what I am telling you is that if you minimize what Jesus did on the cross, then you are missing what he can do for you right now. Point number 2, forgiveness is a choice, not an emotion. Have you ever been at a spot where you're like, I don't feel like forgiving them? I have. I don't feel like forgiving you, so I'm not going to. You understand this entire thing of following Jesus is not doing what you feel, but believing that what he said is better. We're not going to wake up in the morning and be like, you know what? I'm feeling a little spunky today. I am waiting for somebody to wrong me so that I can just pour forgiveness all over them. I feel so forgiving today. No, our default is our flesh of I am going to wait because what you did to me, you deserve punishment. And I am going to be the gatekeeper to hold that offense against you. You've heard people say before, like unforgiveness is like drinking poison, thinking it's going to kill them. Or perhaps maybe you've heard somebody say that unforgiveness opens the jail cell, and then you realize you were the one that was the prisoner the whole time. It's a choice. Joseph is faced with a choice. And he makes the decision, but I'm going to guess, we don't know, that Joseph made the choice to forgive his brothers long before this encounter. Genesis 45, verse 1. Then Joseph could no longer control himself before all his attendants, and he cried out, have everyone leave my presence. So there was no one with Joseph when he made himself known to his brothers. And he wept so loudly that the Egyptians heard him, and Pharaoh's household heard about it. Joseph said to his brothers, I am Joseph. Is my father still living? But his brothers were not able to answer him because they were terrified at his presence. And you would be too. Then Joseph said to his brothers, come close to me. When they had done so, he said, I am your brother Joseph, the one you sold into Egypt. And now, do not be distressed and do not be angry with yourselves for selling me here. Listen to this audacious forgiveness. Because it was to save the lives that God sent me ahead of you. For 2 years now, there has been famine in the land. And for the next 5 years, there will be no plowing and reaping. But God sent me ahead of you to preserve for you a remnant on earth, to save your lives by a great deliverance. Listen to this. Such perspective. He says, so then it is not you who sent me here, but God. He made me father to Pharaoh, lord of his entire household, and ruler of all of Egypt. This is a man who does what we talked about last week. He decided he was going to take his pain and give it to God. He was going to lay it on the altar as a sacrifice and let God use it for his purpose. What do you think the root is of unforgiveness? Like, why are we don't want to forgive? I can tell you what forgiveness is. Point number 3, forgiveness is rooted in God's sovereignty. Now, sovereignty is a big Christian word that we use a lot. The basic idea of sovereignty is that God is in control of everything. He is master over creation, over humankind. He has ultimate authority. He sees the end from the beginning. That's what we mean by sovereignty, that God is sovereign. And forgiveness is rooted in the belief that God is actually in control. So let me just show you what this looks like. If this represents the things that have been done wrong to you, unforgiveness says this: I believe that God, who's invisible, pretty much, exists. He loves me. He sent his son Jesus to die on the cross for me. His blood covers my sins. Therefore, I have a place waiting for me when I die in which I'll spend eternity with him. No problem. But these things that were done to me, believing God that you are just, believing God that you will have no weapon formed against me that will prosper, that you, God, will deal with what is right and what is wrong, and that I trust you with it, that's too hard for me to believe. Eternity, Jesus dying on the cross, no problem. This, no, Lord, what was done to me is more powerful than what you've done. But when we actually trust God, when we believe that He says that He will take care of it all, and that what is best for us is to cast our burdens upon Him because His yoke is light, that we actually say, I trust you, God. It hurts. I don't get it, but I trust you with it. What a gift forgiveness is. What a gift. So now what happens is Jacob dies, the father, the patriarch. And his brothers have this idea of, okay, well, Joseph forgave us while Daddy was alive because he's Dad's favorite, and he wants Dad to be so proud of him, so he's going to forgive us then. But now that he's gone, now he's really going to punish us. He has all the leverage. So let's find out what happens. Genesis 50. Verse 15, when Joseph's brothers saw that their father was dead, they said, what if Joseph holds a grudge against us and pays us back for all the wrongs we did to him? So they sent word to Joseph. This is so funny. We don't actually know if this is true or not. Scripture doesn't really give us any implication. But they write this thing and send to Joseph. We don't know if their dad really said this or if they're just using good strategy. Listen to this. This is what you are to say to Joseph. I ask that you forgive your brothers for the sins and the wrongs they committed in treating you so badly. Now please forgive the sins of the servants of God, of your father. So they send this to Joseph and they're like, hey, this is from Dad. And he said that you need to forgive us and be nice to us now that he's gone. This is from the grave. He wrote this beforehand. Again, he may have. We don't know. Sounds fishy to me. When their message came to Joseph, Joseph wept. It's an interesting word right there. We don't actually know why he wept. But I can imagine that it's like, you still don't believe me. After all these times I had to get even with you and I haven't, and you still don't know me. His brothers then came and threw themselves down before him. Remember when he had a second dream? We are your slaves, they said. But Joseph said to them, don't be afraid. Am I in the place of God? That's what we just talked about. I'm not God. So what you did, I'll leave to God. And then I love what he said. This is like the culmination of this entire story is this verse. He said, you intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. What perspective? Purpose in his pain. For the final time, I'm going to show you Romans 8:28. I gave this to you at the opening message of this entire series and said, give me 4 weeks to show you how this ludicrous verse that could never be possible is actually possible. And it says, for we know that all things work together for good for them who love God and are called according to what purpose? His purpose. See, for me, this is hopeful. Because this means no matter how much I mess up my life and no matter how much other people can mess up my life, God can still use it if I let him. For whose purpose? His purpose. Let me tell you a story. I've got 2 daughters, and I don't know why, but one of their favorite things, like you know how they have all the love languages? My daughter's love language is Starbucks. I don't get it. The Holy Spirit doesn't reside in that building, but whatever. And if any of you own a Starbucks, I'm sorry, but it's true. But anyways, so my daughters, like, they just want this sugar in a cup known as a Frappuccino, right? And so if I ever want to, like, love on them, show them love, they want me to buy them Starbs. I prefer carbs, but they like Starbs. And so is this on? Nobody laughed. I think the microphone's cutting out. I'm so sorry. We'll try to fix that because these jokes are funny. So I take my daughter to Starbucks, my oldest one. It's a daddy-daughter date. What 2 things you want to do? She says, I want to go to Chick-fil-A and I want to go to Starbucks. I'm like, great. Jesus and the devil. No problem. We'll go there. And the mic's working now. And so, like, my daughter, my oldest one, she has this problem where, like, she always wants more. It's like never enough. Like, whatever I give her, it's like, hey, can we also do? No! And so I'm like, hey, listen, if you want a Frappuccino and you want the big old one, whatever it's called, I don't know why they just called it large, but whatever. And I'm like, hey, you're going to have to pay for that if you want it. And she goes, okay. And so she paid for it with her own money. I have no idea how she has so much money, but she does. And so she pays for it. And then, like, I'm driving home, and I'm like, dude, you know what? Like, it's a daddy-daughter date. What kind of date am I if I'm making my daughter pay for her drink? It's like $5, $6, $7, $8, $15, whatever. And I said, I'll tell you what, like, just don't send it. She was going to Venmo me the money because she's a teenager. And I'm like, just don't bother. I got it. Let me just pay for it. And she's like, are you serious? Like, you don't have to. That's so nice. And I'm like, absolutely, yes. And so we get home, and my youngest daughter sees my oldest daughter walk in with this big giant Frappuccino. And she's like, hey, can I just have one drink? And my daughter's like, no, this ain't yours. And I'm like, hold on. You didn't pay for that. I paid for that. Now, who are you if you didn't even pay for it to now be stingy with giving it to someone else? Point number 4, forgiveness is a reflection of God's grace. I'm going to let you in on a secret. And this is a terrible way to grow a church. Are you ready? You deserve hell. You understand that, right? You're like, yeah, so do you, preacher man. I know. But we have to understand that. What if we walked into every situation saying, what I have been forgiven of, I could never pay that debt. So I took Jesus. So with the idea that I deserve hell and Jesus paid a debt that I could not pay, and as a result of that, I will be with him in eternity, who am I then to withhold any forgiveness from anybody? So who am I to say these things you've done to me? No. If you and I are supposed to be like Jesus, and every day we are supposed to become more like him, if he is our leader, if he's who we're trying to be more like, and he hung on a cross naked while people were spitting on him, and just hours before chanting Barabbas, and he can hang up there and he says, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. Who are you and I to say, no, you won't get forgiveness from me? In fact, I would venture to say that if you and I are not forgiving people, are we like Jesus? There was nobody that was rejected more than Jesus. In fact, the prophecy in Isaiah says he's a man of sorrows, familiar with rejection. Let me show you what Jesus said. Now, this is Jesus, not me, so you can send him the email. Listen to what he says right here. Matthew 6:14-15. It says, for if you forgive other people when they have sinned against you, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive others' sins, your Father will not forgive your sins. That's a big deal. That's a big statement. Now, let me tell you what forgiveness isn't. Forgiveness isn't letting them back in your life. Forgiveness isn't restoration of a relationship. Forgiveness isn't even a pain-free existence. What forgiveness is that I am going to let God be God, and I am not carrying this anymore. You see, if you walk around this earth for any period of time, whether it's in this church, whether it's at your job, whether it's with your family, you're going to encounter things. Insults from other people, betrayal, things you did, things done to you, parents, coworkers, spouse. And it's amazing that humans can walk around and what we can get used to. And I see people walking around so burdened. Everything's through the lens of offense. They are beat down, they are broken, and they've been carrying this unforgiveness for so long. And I just want to tell them, forgiveness is a gift. It's a gift. But here's the thing, number 5, our last point. Forgiveness is continual. I wish there was a magic elixir one time that you never have to deal with forgiveness again. Some of you, if what you have to forgive today is a spouse, is a parent, is someone that you're going to see consistently, you're going to have to constantly remind yourself, I choose forgiveness. I remember I carried around some things from my childhood for so long. Unforgiveness, anger. Can't believe they did this to me. If you and I had a chance to sit and have coffee and have a real honest conversation, you would never believe the things that I've been through. And I remember the day that I finally just cried out to God, hey, I don't want to deal with this anymore. I don't want to live like this anymore. What was done was awful. I didn't deserve it. It wasn't my fault. But I'm tired of it. And so, Lord, if you actually say that I can give this stuff to you and that I can walk without having to carry this burden and I can give it to you, I choose that. And then after a while, man, I remember just walking around thinking, I could have lived like this for years. Of just trusting that God's going to be God. I've been carrying this for so long, it's just so unnecessary. Do you believe Jesus died on the cross? Do you believe he calls you by name? Some of you have been carrying around a rock in your backpack for a long time, and it's things that you did. You see, God forgave you, but in some weird twist of fate, you think that not forgiving yourself is punishment you deserve. You do. But Jesus doesn't have to die on the cross again for your new sins. It's powerful enough once. Forgive yourself. And let him have purpose out of your pain. I want to share two last verses. These are both from Paul. Colossians 3:12 through 13. Put on then, literally the language of putting on a jacket, like this jacket. This is not pink, bro. This is salmon. Put on then, as God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, compassionate hearts, kindness, humility, meekness, and patience, bearing with one another, and if anyone has a complaint against you, forgiving each other, as the Lord has forgiven you, so you must also forgive. Nobody outside of Jesus in the New Testament church was wronged more than Paul. Some of these things he wrote while he was in a jail cell. Ephesians 4:31 through 32, get rid of all bitterness, rage, and anger, brawling and slander, along with every form of malice. Be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other, just as Christ forgave you. You and I have to be the most forgiving people in the world, and even if you don't want to, make the choice of it, because forgiveness is a gift. And you have a chance to leave feeling a lot lighter, a lot happier, a lot more joy, a lot more peace. Let's see what God does. Forgiveness is a gift. Thank you so much for watching this video. It truly is an honor to be able to spend a little bit of time with you. I want to encourage you, if you want to keep up with all of the latest things going on at Centerpoint Church, you can subscribe to this channel. You can hit that bell for alerts so that you won't miss anything. And most importantly, if this impacted you in any way, I want to hear about it. We want to celebrate with you. We want to serve you. So if you go to centerpointtn.com, click on Contact Us, and we can't wait to get connected with you.